Hey, hi, Ifat. How are you?
Hi. I'm
Good, good,
fine.
good. So
Thank
let's
you so
start.
much.
Thank you so much. I think let's start. As the mommies have started joining. Hello, everyone. So, hello, mommies. Thanks a lot for all your support and love. Today at 6 International Breastfeeding Weekday Series, we have with us another strong, determined, and a successful real mom turned IBCLC certified lactation consultant, a biodynamic cardiocycle practitioner, highly recommended on BSIN. Her special interest lies in oral and sucking dysfunction, tongue tie, assessment, treatment, rehabilitation. She is part of many international and national boards. She is also on the panel of experts for many platforms like Mother and Baby, Mother's World, Baby Chakra, and many more. Her exceptional clinical acumen and skills are deep, and her deeply compassionate care for mothers makes her invaluable. She is also a producer and director of an award-winning international documentary film, Untying Breastfeeding, which is screened over 100 cities in the world. She has dedicated her life in many projects to educate, protect, promote, and restore breastfeeding and other craniofacial development across her life. She has currently set up her first lactation family wellness clinic with full-time breastfeeding support in Mumbai. A very warm welcome, Ms. Pratyashmi.
Thank you so much, Nishan.
Thank you,
Thank you
ma'am.
for inviting
So,
me.
as it
And
is said that a person who has experienced light and darkness, war and peace, rise and fall, is the only person who's truly experienced. She has seen all seasons in her life. Ma'am, I would really request you to share your motivating story with all of us, from a wife to a mother to what you are today.
yeah, I mean, that's very sweet of you to, bring in my personal aspect in a live session today. But I have been, called to share my story in the film as well. If you have
Yes.
watched the film, I have shared my film there. Almost, it's like unless you show your wounds sometimes, uh, there is no place for deep listening. You know, some we sometimes need to see the wound to be able to understand what someone else is going through, and that is
Yes.
true for our own lives as well, because when we go through hardships in life, it awakens our consciousness to understand how many others may be going through something similar,
Definitely.
until such a time it seems like we don't have a reality of other people's life or their experiences in life. So one such was my own experience during pregnancy. It was a tough pregnancy, very high risk pregnancy while I was going through it. And I also had two miscarriages before I actually had my child. And during the time of pregnancy, I was hospitalized several times. So it was considered to be like you had to be monitored constantly. And I did have to experience a cesarean section during birth. And that changed my experience. A paradigm shift happened, Nisha. I was a naive mother, so just as everybody else is, trusting the
Right.
system, and we move through experiences as life takes us, just like water flows. But while this experience, while I was going through this experience, I had no education before that. I had never attended a childbirth class or a breastfeeding class, none of it at all. So I was like just going through life. And when I experienced this, I think it's the body's experience that awakens you. It is what the body had gone through, and then the questions arise in your mind as to, could this have been different? Could this have been any other way? So the question starts from there. And my baby was premature. She couldn't latch very well, she couldn't feed very well, and she also had low birth weight. So it was a huge challenge to keep up to what the pediatrician would expect a well baby to be, right? So while going through this, there was also excruciating pain during feeding. And I did look out for help. I tried to reach out to different avenues, went to different doctors, but all that I heard was either I was not doing something right, or my baby just doesn't know to feed. And that didn't sit right to me, because intuitively you understand that birth and breastfeeding is a natural process of life, and if it is a natural process, then if there are hindrances, there got to be some answers as well, right? And when you get dismissed over and over again, Nisha, uh, it it kind of it shifts a certain kind of consciousness inside a human being to feel that this is not true. I need
Right.
to seek the truth. that
Yes.
that is the journey that I started out with. And then I joined the Lalich League International, which is an NGO, which is an international NGO. So they are available in many countries in the world, which support
Right.
breastfeeding, and it is completely a mother-to-mother support group. And they do a fantastic job of counseling mothers who are mothers themselves, who have breastfed for at least 1 year, and they go through training as well. So I was called to do the training while I got the support from my Lalich League leader, and that's how I entered the world of lactation.
Okay.
And this journey called me more because I could connect with other mothers. I could understand the pain they might be going through. And then the sort of the counseling that I was doing to them uh, was kind of filling my wounds, I think, in the way. It was kind of healing you in a process. So I continued, and I just went with the flow in that journey. But however, my questions remain that Lalich League often offers the moral support, because it's a mother to mother support group, Nisha.
Yes.
So therefore, there's nothing clinical about it, right?
Okay.
So when I hit roads which say that, okay, this can't be just by a counseling. You can't just keep telling every mother, just giving moral support for, okay, this is okay. This for example, milk supply isn't such a big issue. You need to continue to breastfeed your baby, or the frequency of number of times the baby goes to the breast is absolutely normal. We should allow that. So this kind of motivation does not go very far at some point.
Right.
Then you need to start to step in to see, are there other restrictions going on, are there other problems going on here, which are not just to do with myths around breastfeeding, or social obligations around breastfeeding, or understanding about it, or lack of understanding about it. So
Right.
that is the first tier of support that we need, which is family support, spouses support, and your community support that you need, like other women. So when you are already receiving that, then when you see that there are still problems, there are some mothers who are still going through problems, and those problems are not to do with social conditioning, myths, and lack of support. They could be much
Right.
more, and that could be something more clinical. And that's when I stepped up to seek to study higher, and that's how I became a lactation consultant. And then went further from there. Although in terms of certification, lactation as a field is still very new. In terms of a branch of support that needs to go into professional support team, that clinical support team that a mother should receive, like a gynecologist or an obstetrician or a pediatrician, lactation consultants is an integral part of that team, which you can see, Nisha, that it's not a common thing. It not
It's
anywhere
not.
in the world, so
It's
it's
not.
still rising, it's still coming. It used to
Yes.
be some part of it used to be a part of the gynecologist and OBGYN
Right.
profile. Some of it used to be a part of the pediatrician, but never really a separate line of inquiry where you can completely dedicate yourself to support, because
Definitely.
lactation support is extremely time intensive and labor intensive work, because you need to spend time with mothers to understand, because I remember going to a pediatrician, Nisha, and then she said, can you put your baby to the breast? And I did, and she said, everything looks fine. So yeah, I understood that you can only do that much in a matter of 30 seconds, right,
Right.
or a minute. That's how much time a busy pediatric practice can offer you, or a
Yes.
gynecologist can offer you. It's not their fault, it's just that they are busy and they can't really look beyond that. But if you look at a lactation consultant, and their profiles, they have been trained to look at a mother's breastfeeding, completely looking at the dynamics between a mother and baby, looking at what's going on in terms of positioning, in terms of their interaction between them, what else may be going on in their family setup. So this takes approximately 90 minutes, an hour to 90 minutes, and that's how much you need to really spend time to get even just a grasp of what the mother could be actually going through.
Definitely. To understand
right?
the,
Yeah, the
you can't
deeper
understand
aspect of it.
someone's
You
pain in
cannot.
30
No, no.
seconds. You have to get
Yes,
emotionally attached to it. Definitely.
you have to really be a part of that experience of a mother.
Yes.
Only
Yes.
then would you know exactly what is going on, right? So when you get in, like I think becoming an IBCLC got me that experience to get into that. But however, as you might be aware, I started to inquire further and moved into understanding about oral restrictions that are going on, which is completely new at that point when I started, and people actually just called me like crazy, why is she even looking at those things, right? Even my other colleagues, other lactation consultants, weren't very open to having interactions about this particular topic. So
Right.
that's when I set up a group, which is a professional group on Facebook, which has approximately 4,000 members. And that's a multidisciplinary group where you have, physical therapists, pediatricians, lactation consultants, craniosacral practitioners, chiropractors, and dentists, and so all these different sets of and ENTs also. So all of these professionals across the world who interact specifically to do with tongue and lip ties and understanding oral restrictions. So that's how I created a support group, which I was not able to kind of receive within the clinical community. So along the way, I think we had to pave our way. I literally had to pave the way and create the support network that I needed at that point.
Definitely.
And it has come a long way. I think understanding about tongue and lip tie now is not really so uncommon, you can say. Yeah, still has a long way to go, but at least mothers are able to kind of jump into the internet world and actually read about other mothers experiences. So there is something to read today, but that wasn't the case about 10 years ago. 10 years ago it was a very different scenario.
Of
Yeah, so
course.
that's been my journey in a very small gist, right?
So you are the real example when we say that only a mother can understand a mother's pain. So
Right.
more than understanding the pain, you have brought that solution to our life. And in a
Yeah,
very
there are times where I have mentioned this to the mother that, as a clinician, I do look at what you're going through, but as
yes.
a mother, I have been there with you. So I do understand that physical discomfort and emotional journey that you might be going through. So that's really hard for most mothers to go through. Yeah.
So after you joined the platforms, how was your breastfeeding journey?
So, like
Did
I
that
mentioned
help?
to you, I think I got a lot of moral support from allegedly, Nisha.
Okay.
But however, I don't think I received clinical support because I was not able to get anyone to do clinical,
Right.
understanding about it, and I had to figure things out on my own. So. While my breastfeeding journey continued with the pain for 2.5 years until the time my child weaned off, um, I could only open the world to prevent pain and discomfort for some other mothers, not for my own self. Yeah.
So, ma'am, why don't you share your experience and what made you, like, what motivated you for your documentary, Untying Breastfeeding?
All right. Yeah. So that's another thing. So as I went along connecting with so many mothers across India, and there were also mothers calling me, Indian mothers calling from outside as well,
Mm-hmm.
I realized that the story of the mother is not something that we often talk about. And and that story was such a strong story that it needed to be told and it needed to come out and people needed to hear about it. And these are experiences that women are going through, and often we kind of normalize and even kind of idealize the discomfort that a woman goes through, or pain of a mother, or a pain of a woman. Pain is kind of is supposed to be normalized in women's life per se. So I think that's an area that called me deeply, and I said, no, there has to be a way to put the story out. I am not a filmmaker by profession or any of that, Nisha. It was a journey, and I was led to it. I would say I was led to it. There was a strong energy that was behind me over the years. So it took from the time of my thought process to have the story out till the time the film came out. It was nearly about 7 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 7 to 8 years, I would say. So there was
Okay.
another mum from Ahmedabad. Is a lovely, lovely mum. She happened to be a filmmaker.
Okay.
So then she said, I will help you out, put the story out. And then she started it. And then we trailed out again. And then after a couple of years, we came back again. And then she
Okay.
put me on to some of the resources. And from there on, the resources just fell in place across the world. So it's a film that has been filmed across the world, as you might have watched the
Right.
film.
Yes.
So there were many, many, many resources that had to come together. And I can only call it a cosmic design. That my work in that is to just follow the spirit and the energy. That's what I could tell you. Yeah, but it has its own journey. And I think it has reached many shores. And I hope that it will reach many more families. And at the moment, as you're speaking to me during this breastfeeding week, it is being screened. It was invited to be screened in Macedonia, in Europe.
Oh, oh
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. So at the moment, actually, it's happening today, Nisha. It's happening today.
Wow.
Tonight, it's happening tonight, actually.
It's so all the mothers should definitely be watching and seeing this movie. So we can
Yes.
go and see
Yes,
this.
you can. You can go to Vimeo and look for Untying Breastfeeding, and you can actually just watch the film there. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So moving on, as I've already mentioned also, and we also know that you have done a lot of studies and paperwork around tongue tie, lip tie, and breastfeeding issues and support and many more. So why don't you share your experience? How different is your learning and practicing when it comes to Indian mothers? How
Indian
difficult
mothers.
it is?
So initially, when I started out this process, there was a huge lack of understanding about any impact that would come from from the baby's side, Nisha. So often mothers would come and they would think that something's wrong with them. Either their breasts are small, big, flat nipples, or they would think they have inverted nipples, or they would think their breast milk is less. So they would have issues like these. They would come back with issues like this. No one really thought that, okay, there is another equation to this whole process of breastfeeding. There's my baby as well. So all that they could understand is, okay, my baby is sleepy, I will have to wake my baby up many times, but never really looking at what are the other dynamics that are playing around it.
Right.
And then so that education took I think it was taking most of my energy in that education. When parents would come, I would have a chat with them and gently take them through the observations that are happening and collaborating that with their own experiences. So if a mother and a father and a mother come into the clinic and they are watching me narrate what we are watching the baby do, it starts to resonate and say, yeah, I mean, this is true, this is what happens with my baby. And that's when they become more alert, and then they start to ask questions, and they want solutions, and they want resolution and support. And so that was a major part. And I also tried to reach out to the professional community, especially the pediatricians, to have an interaction with them, to have a chat with them, to tell them that these are my clinical observations. If we can have some collaborative work to give more support to parents. But honestly, I think pediatricians have been the most closed so far. Now, in the recent times, I think they have started to open up, because they can see that there are a lot of mothers educated who are coming to them already educated. So
Yes.
there is a sort of a back pressure, Nisha. So there's sort of a back
Right.
pressure that we need to up our skills. And I truly feel that every baby has taught me, and every baby has pushed my boundaries to say, this is not enough that you need to know more. So those babies have been my teachers. Those babies and mothers have been my teachers.
Wow, that's really commendable. You're giving very nice, very nice. So of course, now the mothers are all educated. During pregnancy, they've started reading so many books. They've started connecting with prenatal classes, and where
Yes.
everyone tells them that you have to breastfeed. How was your experience with pre-corona mothers and post the corona phase?
Okay, so I think irrespective of the fact whether or not it is to do with lactation or birth, I think pre-COVID and during the COVID times right now, I think the times have changed for sure, because there is a lot of anxiety. I think fear and anxiety has been the topmost concerns for mothers. And also how protocols have been followed in hospitals. Those have also impacted breastfeeding and birthing experiences, because as it is in a hospital setup, it's a very clinical approach towards birth, where
Right.
a mother has to go through a certain way of how she has to labor, and how much support will she be given, and what kind of birth she might have. So those are something that are very clinical in approach rather than a life experience approach, right? So
Right.
because of COVID, I think restrictions have been stronger. Mothers have been isolated during the laboring period. So those are things that we get to see what is happening in India. I believe it's happening in other countries as well, but definitely it's added a lot of challenge and just general anxiety of mothers thinking that, oh, I'm pregnant during the COVID time, I don't know what's going to happen. So I think that's also a personal experience and personal fears that are loaded up there. So yes, we are going through very challenging times, Nisha. Very, very challenging
Definitely.
times. Yeah, yeah.
Both emotionally and
Oh
it's
yes.
very challenging for the mothers.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
Right.
it is a challenging time, and my calling or my message to the mothers would be to find a way to disconnect from the story that's outside and just go within and be a part of the story that is becoming, which is you and your baby.
Lovely. Definitely. So, ma'am, tell me, you have got so many new techniques, so many new solutions for the breastfeeding. So, how well Indian moms grasp them?
I think as a community, we still are very communal. We are very connected. I mean, we are very social and connected people still. So in that way, because I offer energy work as a part of the support for breastfeeding, and musculoskeletal corrections and those kind of things that you were just talking about.
Right.
Latch difficulties, or just colic, or babies not resting, they are not having sleep, and mother's going through postpartum depression, or she's gone through trauma during pregnancy or even birth. So these are things that what is being offered is energy, and I think people are very open to that, Nisha. And
That's really nice.
they do understand that, as an Eastern culture, we do have a deep connection to our energy systems, and yoga talks about it a lot. So it's our primal connections are still there. So it's not so far away. It's not like people can't understand what energy is. They do understand it, and they seem to experience it. And if they experience it once, and they know that if something is shifted, and not, I mean, people, I think parents and young mothers, they get hooked on. They, wherever the support comes from, they are like those, what would I say, the honeybees that go towards the honeycomb.
Right.
It's sort of like that. Yeah.
So that's really nice. Nothing is better than breast milk. And if mothers understand this thing, so the whole story is sorted then.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I talk so less about breast milk actually. The reason is that I feel like we separate the wholeness of a mother to her milk and to her. And interestingly, we have fragmented it further by having pumps also. So now the mother is separate, her breast is separate, and then the milk is separate.
Okay.
Do you see that? So the journey of the mother is becoming like, oh, I'm here, my baby is here, and then I have a pumping system that goes on, and then I also have to deal with my supply. So if you bring them all together, that's the experience that human heart it looks for. We look
Right.
for that, and that's what we seek as mothers. They're not happy pumping, or they're not happy, they just do it because there is no other choice. We do it
Right.
because it's a makeshift. And that's why I feel pumps have to be considered as medical intervention, as breastfeeding lactation aids that will be given during the lactation therapy. So if I'm going through a plan of care with a lactation consultant, I'm going through a plan through which during the treatment process I will be using this. It is not a part of my life. It should
Right.
not be a part of your life.
Not be a part of your life.
It should not
Definitely.
be because that takes away a lot of experience from mothers,
Right.
not just mothers as an experience, but also, as you know, I'm my area of interest is craniofacial development. So I concentrate a lot on that. So I feel breastfeeding is the architect of the airway, which is your breathing apparatus in the body, which is your nasal passages, your throat passages, and all of these craniofacial structures that you have that allows breathing to happen, which is maximized through breastfeeding. The act of breastfeeding maximizes that, Nisha. So that is the fundamental. So if breastfeeding is the architect of that, my motivation to support mothers is to support the airway, not the breast milk.
So far we were simply discussing about breast milk, but you have given a different view to this thing, that why breastfeeding is also important. A
Yeah.
complete different view.
Yeah, I think if mothers come to know about it, I have full faith, and I am, I completely trust parents taking the right decisions for their babies, because if they have the understanding, they will take it. But if they don't have it, then they are going to be always taking a choice within the limited knowledge they might have.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, as I also did a little research and I read, you helped one of the adoptive mom with breastfeeding. So, would you like to share that experience with us?
Yeah.
Something
Oh,
which is
that's
really
nice that
rare.
you read about it. But that's a very common thing. It's not something that's rare. There are a lot of mothers who come for adoptive breastfeeding. It is very similar to relactation, Nisha. So a mother who has already breastfed a baby for a short period of time, and she has had not enough of support during the initial stages of lactation and breastfeeding, she might give up breastfeeding, right? So they might come back later and then say, can I restart the process of relactating? So that's a relactation process. It's a very similar process of adoptive breastfeeding. So the approach is that you ensure that, and actually relactation is not really that hard, and mothers should know about it, that okay, if I've lost the experience, it doesn't mean I can't go back to it. In fact, relactation is initiated even in emergencies, Nisha. For example, there's a storm or there's a natural disaster that's happened, and usually what happens is there will be relief material that is sent to emergency hit areas, and
Right, right.
usually boxes and boxes and cartons of formula is being sent to these places, supposedly to support mothers and babies. But what really they need is the support for relactation and to maintain the baby in breastfeeding, so that in the vulnerable state of having a natural disaster, breastfeeding does not get impacted. And so relactation can happen within a short period of 72 hours, sometimes 48 hours, or sometimes.
Just stay tuned, mothers. I think there's some network glitch. We'll wait for if it to
Sorry,
join back.
no,
Yeah,
no, sorry.
that's okay.
There
That's
was a
okay.
call. Yeah, there was a call. Yes, so I was talking about relief measures and how breast milk is again, breastfeeding is kind of marginalized, and it tends to kind of be hit very often from every area. Similarly, I just want mothers to know that relactation is not a difficult process. We need to just dedicate ourselves to it, and I think the team needs to work harder, so
Right.
we can kind of put back the track of the mother to be able to continue to breastfeed, and it can happen in a short period of time. So how do we do that? So we educate the mother that what is important to know is to make sure that your attachment between the mother and baby, that's maintained. First of all, that
Okay.
is to be restored. And then we look at if there are other restrictions that are going on, what are the impediments that are not causing this baby to transfer milk from the mother's breast. So we try to establish that. And then
Right.
the only thing that you need to do is to up your milk supply. And honestly, till now, I can tell you one thing, Nisha, in the last more than a decade of my work, I'm yet to find true milk supply problems. Very, very rare, I would say. Very rare. And the reason is not because there is no real milk supply issue. There is an issue, but that's always a secondary issue, which means
Not
that
the primary.
because breastfeeding has not been established or has been poor, therefore the milk supply has reduced. Not because a mother cannot produce milk. So that's very, very rare. So I don't concentrate so much on milk supply. So I just simply let the mother that we give a plan to them. I give them a plan and keep them off the mind that you don't have to concentrate on that. You need to spend more time bonding and making sure that you spend more time with your baby, and then eventually also get her to do what she needs to do clinically in terms of bringing up the supply to match up with what is required. So during the treatment process, that's more like a background process. Because if I set the mother to start racing against her supply, then you are already setting her up for a failure, because she's going to sit and spend all the time that she has just pumping and trying to save every ounce and every drop of her breast milk and still feel like a failure that it's not enough for my baby. So I feel like it's a the approach has to be that you move away from the most difficult things and move towards what is ease, what is possible. So if you move towards possibility, all others will just follow through.
Wow, ma'am, that's really a very positive thought. Definitely, you should always think and look towards the sun, and not the
Yes.
darkness.
Yes.
Definitely. So sometimes, ma'am, mothers go through extreme difficult conditions and circumstances, which make it really hard for them to breastfeed. I also read that you have helped a lot of mom and helped them in successfully breastfeed even after having issues like surrogacy, premature babies, babies with neuromuscular or sensory interrogations issues. Please share that experience with us.
So I think as an experience, we need to go back to birthing and breast, and a whole approach of a human experience. So women, as we are growing, we are collecting a story in our body, just as every other human being is. We also do that, and every experience you've gone through in life, the story is registered in your body.
Right.
So when we are going through certain things during pregnancy and during birth, that's not an exclusive experience at that point. It is reliving some of those experiences that have happened before with us. So, for example, if a mother has gone through sexual abuse, Nisha, at very early in her age and as a young child, she may not understand how this impacts breastfeeding and birth and pregnancy, but it does have a deep impact on that. So including conception, because conception can also be a huge issue where I'm holding back my experiences in life because of what has happened in the past, and that's very subconscious.
Stay with us. She'll be back in a minute. I think Bombay rains are there and the network issues are coming. In the meantime, I would love to remind all the mommies, please, if you have any questions related to breastfeeding, don't forget to use your comment box. We'll be taking up your questions one by one. I think she has left. I'll just take her back.
Oh, I think we got dropped off.
That's okay. Bombay rains, I can understand. The network keeps coming in going.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So you were sharing the experience with the premature babies and surrogating
Yes.
mothers.
So, like I mentioned to you, these are stories that we have in our bodies, and then we might have extreme levels of vomiting during pregnancy, or you might go through, hormonal changes in the pregnancy, or you may be nutritionally deficient during pregnancy,
Right.
or having difficulties with labor itself. The fear that we have stored in our bodies, in our psyches, in our souls, they play out in big ways during experiences of birth. So it's not surprising that mothers go through so much pain, or they might end up not having a natural birth. So all these are experiences that we need to be very aware of. And during breastfeeding, a lot of there are mothers who have gone through sexual abuse, and they might go through difficulties not being able to actually latch their baby and have an experience that is natural experience. They might get anxious. They might want to unlatch the baby very often, or they might get upset with their own bodies and they feel like they are a failure. And so there are so many such emotional roller coaster that the mothers can go through because of several experiences they might have. So yeah, so we need to look at all those things, Nisha. So then, approach, it has to be then holistic approach. When we approach it from a holistic perspective, then we are not only healing the breastfeeding journey, but actually uh, healing their heart and their being as they go through life.
Definitely, definitely, ma'am. So, ma'am, as we all know, you are an expertise in tongue tie and lip tie issues faced by babies. Please explain to our mothers what is exactly tongue tie and lip tie.
Okay, so as structures, a body has a certain integrity, and every part of the body has a certain integral way of how it interacts with other systems in the body and maintains the equilibrium within the body. So when you look at the tongue, what happens is that the tongue has a certain ability to do, for example, elevation, lifting up, moving from side to side, which is lateralization, and
Right.
peristaltic movement, which is like a wave like motion. So it's a very complex system, the tongue and its oral, the entire oral complex is a very complex system, and that system has to then work wonderfully well with the interaction with the cranial nerves to be able to breastfeed.
Right.
Now, if you have difficulties in any of those interactions, any of those components, then you're going to have some challenge. Similarly, the tongue has, it has a small tissue that's underneath the tongue,
Right.
which is basically like an anchor, which everyone has it, but it's not meant to be tight, short, or thick.
Okay.
So when it becomes tight, short, or thick, then we need to look at it and support, because that can restrict movement, that can restrict function, and therefore we may not be able to achieve what it requires for the complex activity of mechanics of breastfeeding. So those are difficulties mothers can find. As you know, some of the symptoms mothers can have is painful feeding, nipples cracking, bleeding, or they might have plug ducts, repeated plug ducts happening, or baby's not gaining enough weight, baby's extremely sleepy, not being able to, rest without being at the breast, not being able to latch also. So there could be different areas of things that the mother and the baby could experience if they've had a restricted tongue. And similarly the lip, so you have a small tissue that's underneath the lip here at the philtrum level, which is right below your nose. So
Right.
this could be also very tight sometimes, and this does not let you flange well and to latch deeply at the mother's breast, and sometimes that gets rolled in all the time, and mothers struggle with it, and it can be a pinch kind of a feeling that they might have at the breast. So and then baby might become extremely gassy sometimes because it's not a very deep latch. So baby might take in a lot of air and become very gassy and colicky. So these are different areas that we can look at for, to understand what a tongue and lip tie can do if there are restrictions.
What are the risks involved if a tongue tie and lip tie remains untreated?
Okay, so that's a new area of work that has been explored, and there is a lot of research that's still required. We are still kind of scratching on the surface to get to know what's happening. If we continue to have a tongue and lip tie, what are the things that we might face? So what we have identified so far, because I also work across lifetime, because I'm as a dual trained practitioner, I'm also a clinical sacral practitioner, so I work with adults as well. So given that background, to have that dual training, what it allows me to then do is to look at the entire spectrum of issues that people face if they have a tongue tie across lifetime. So as a baby, that might impede breastfeeding. As a child, it might impede chewing abilities, swallow abilities. Then you can see babies sitting down with food all the time, pocketing, sitting, not being able to eat further, sitting hours together, or mothers have to kind of struggle with either putting them on digital devices or TV to watch and to eat. You know how those are the distraction, the various kind of distraction protocols that mothers have to follow. Those issues that are there. Speech issues could be there. Sensory issues can be there. Where somebody could be, they could be mouth breathing. They could be mouth breathing. They could be, snoring. Also, grinding of the teeth. They can grind the teeth as well in the night. That's called bruxism. And so there are these issues at the childhood level, and also hyperactive sometimes, because there is less oxygen in the circulation of the body, because then they're not able to sleep very well, and they're opening the mouth and sleeping. So those issues can cause them to be hyperactive. They're not rested. They don't get enough rest. So those are issues of the childhood. But when you grow up, then you can have issues as an adult, like a headache, or a neck, cervical spondylitis, or neck pain, or tightness around the shoulders, and spine could be tight, and they could have back pain, lower lumbar area pain. So there could be multiple such issues that you can go through. And also hormonal issues for women can also happen because of lack of movement of the tongue. And so because it supports the entire system of the body, and it maintains the balance, it maintains the sensory system, it maintains the hormonal balance in the body. So all these things are kind of altered or compensated when the tongue is not doing its function. So this is still to be explored, and my area of interest also has been to see how many times have I seen women who have tongue ties themselves as young mothers who come to me who have depression. Not just young mothers, but even young women, just women who are going through anxiety throughout life. Everything in life is makes them anxious. Even normal life experiences are too overwhelming for them. So therefore, I explored that option. I explored that study, and I looked into it, and I have a this is my hypothesis. I still have to do my research, clinical research on it, but my hypothesis is there is a linkage between lack of integrity of the craniofacial structures along with the tongue tie, and breathing difficulties, which are airway issues, which is partially mouth breathing issues, causing them to have depression and sleep issues and sleep apnea.
I'm really like I after I did a research and I did a little study, I read a lot about tongue tie and everything. But I'm really grateful that I raised this question here because it's not just a tongue tie and breastfeeding, but I guess this is a tie or a knot for your entire life if you don't solve it at
Yes,
a young age.
yes, that's
Definitely,
right.
definitely. So now, also now when we are here on the topic, why don't you also tell us so what are the correction treatments involved in tongue tie and lip tie?
So it's a comprehensive approach, Nisha, and
Yeah.
it's very important that people understand it's a team approach. you
Okay.
know and it cannot be just a small surgical process and that's about it. We must not think that okay, it's a small restriction under the tongue, and you just snip it and you're done. It's I think it's very very narrow approach if we do that. And if you look at it from a wellness approach, a rehabilitating approach, then you look at it from a team approach, which is like a holistic approach. So the body is restricted and compensated for long periods of time, so therefore the uncompensation has to be supported in the body. That can be done by craniosacral practice, which is a body work, energy work, or you could even approach a physical therapist. They can also do a lot of work. They may or may not understand tongue ties at this point, so there are fewer people who do. But I guess somewhere we have to start involving those
Right.
that team as well, because they are skilled in correcting tissue restrictions, muscle restrictions. So those things are already some as a part of their clinical practice, and they need to be a part of the tongue tie team. And then chiropractors do fantastic job, which is they correct the subluxations in the spine, which is like small minuscule movements that have occurred in the spinal canal, and they adjust it and make them come back. So that's an approach that we can see that corrects the rest of the body. All these modalities look at the body as a whole, the body as a self-regulating system. So therefore we support it from the bare minimum and expect the body to do more, so it does a fantastic job every single time. So that's the precursor. You can say that's the preparation before you release the tongue tie, which is a part of the treatment protocol. And then also then continue a rehabilitation process after that. So that really depends on every case to case, whether we are looking at a breastfeeding baby, whether we are looking at a child, whether we're looking at a young adult, or so and so forth. We are also looking at older people, so they might have other swallow issues later on, who cannot handle more than a pureed foods. There are a lot of elderly people who cannot handle anything more than mashed up food. They struggle
Right.
with food. So that's the high compensation levels that they've reached basically. So rehabilitation process is very personalized, and the team can change depending on who we need, but a team approach is absolutely important. And preventive dentist, occupational therapist, physical therapist, craniosacral practitioners, and these are the some of the main ones that can be a part of the team, and ENTs can be a part of the team as well.
So the solution is not that difficult. I'm sure everyone who are
Oh
facing
yes,
issues, they should go for
absolutely.
help and
Yeah,
get it
you
done.
you reach out to the right team, and
Yes.
you will be supported. Yes.
Yes. So, ma'am, we have one question here. Ma'am, please discuss the importance of body work when it comes to releasing or healing oral restrictions.
Okay. So when we look at oral restrictions, we are looking at it from an anatomical point of view, which is structure, and then we are looking at it from the function point of view. Okay. Now let me give you a small example. Now I have 5 fingers in my hand, right? If
Okay.
I don't have one finger, that's not a functional problem. That is a structural problem,
Right.
right? Because I don't have a part missing for me. So,
Right.
or if there's some sort of a tightness somewhere, or some kind of a what do you say, a congenital anomaly, some sort of an anomaly that's there. That is structure. When we look at function is my hand looks okay, but I don't have the strength to lift, to grasp, to hold. I can't do those things. That is function, Nisha.
Right.
So we have to evaluate, is there a structural issue or is there a functional issue? So as far as the functional issues are concerned, many of it can be rehabilitated with body work.
Right.
And the simplest form of body work, which is widely practiced already across the world and especially in India, is massage. A simple massage can free up a lot of those structures that are tight in our body. Okay, that's why infant massage is so beautiful as a part of the protocol that we have in every household. You have the japa lady who comes and who does the job for you, who helps you support the baby throughout. So I think it's a very traditional, very, very wise, full of wisdom practices. One must go back and honor those traditional values and protocols that they follow for mothers postpartum. So that's one thing that's very
Definitely.
beautiful. So that's why massage is one of them. Other modalities are there, craniosacral practices there, which could be a physical work. Also, it could be energetic work. Also, there could be chiropractic work if you're reaching out to someone, or like I mentioned to you, they can also be done with physical therapies.
Yes.
So these are things that will help you restore the function. But when you look at the structure, like a tongue tie, um, the compensations around the tongue tie, such as birth difficulties, traction forces because the baby's gone through the birthing process, and restrictions that have happened during the time where a mother has
Right.
been not given the liberty to move around her body and listen to her intuitive sense of the body. Their innate ability to birth has been restricted by our ways of how we allow mothers to birth. There can be a lot of restrictions in the body functionally.
Okay.
That can be taken care by body work, and that necessarily need not be a symptom of a tongue tie, but it may look very similar to a tongue tie problem.
I hope the question was well answered. Please do share all your questions in our comment box. So, moving on, as we are in our International Breastfeeding Week and with a IBCLC certified lactation consultant, I would not miss the opportunity to pick up few of the breastfeeding related questions with you, ma'am. So, what first time mom needs to know about breastfeeding, which is a very important question. Mothers have been asking like from last 5-6 days. So we were just waiting for you to come and answer the question.
I think the number one thing I would, or I would have liked to know when I was a mother, let me put it that way, is understanding the importance of planning and getting your birth to be supported. If you want your breastfeeding to start well, then your birth has to be supported.
Okay.
And if I don't work on my birth, and unfortunately we need to work for birth because our systems don't support natural birth. So we need to create the environment for a natural birth, which is very unfortunate. I hope that it will not be the case for very long, but up until that time, mothers need to know that during pregnancy they need to build a team of birthing team that allows them to kind of have a beautiful, naturally supported birth, and that's what mothers need to feel. And if mothers feel that way, most often babies are born in a gentle environment, and when they're born in a gentle environment, we really don't have to do much. Nature takes care of it, and breastfeeding is a natural act only then, which we already know. but we are expecting a natural breastfeeding act to happen without having the habitat, or without
Right.
having the environment, or without having just, the life around us that allows the natural experience to happen.
Right. So the next one is breastfeeding painful?
It's not meant to be. It's a part of your body experience, and just as every other physical act of the body, such as love making, hugging your people who you love, every act of love is meant to be pleasurable. So is supposed to be breastfeeding as well.
Okay. So moving on to the next one. How do you know how much milk you're producing? This is the biggest problem
Oh
with
God.
every mother.
There you go back to the milk again. Yeah. Okay. So let's put it this way. I think there are some key things the mothers look for, and that will, some of them are something that we already understand. That if is my milk enough for my baby? There are some parameters. There are some evidences the mother needs to look at. There has to be an
Okay.
evidence, right? Because it's a physical transfer. It's not something that's happening in abstract.
Right.
Milk is transferring from the mother to the baby, so mother needs to know whether or not this is enough. And we are set in a culture and a community or a generation where everything has to be measured. We're so used to having everything measured. So, unfortunately, the human body is not with measurements. So, the
Right.
breast doesn't come with calibrations like a bottle does. So, that's why this question keeps coming again. Is it enough for my baby? Is it enough for my baby? So, I think the few things that people already know about is the baby well hydrated? That means the enough number of, diapers have been changed, or rather, the hydration level has to be maintained. We're also looking at the bowel movements have to be regular, and that's some of one area that people have a little bit of doubt about, because some people believe that it's okay to have a breastfed baby not having bowel systems move even for a week. And that is a myth. Everything that goes in has to come out. So every significant meal has to have a bowel movement. That is not
Okay.
just for a baby, but throughout your lifetime. Okay, so therefore, bowel movements are very important part of the sign that you need to look for. Baby's weight gain has to be steady. It may not be jumping to extreme levels that sometimes pediatricians are looking for, because sometimes they're just comparing a formula fed baby to a breastfed baby. So we need to look at what is it that is normal for a breastfed baby. So that's one of the things. But these are three things that a mother is not looking for. Even if all the three things are okay, she will still come and tell, I have a problem, my milk supply is. You know why? Because she is looking for an internal check, which is her intuitive sense of the mother, which is her intelligence. And I really honor the mother's intuition. It's the highest intelligence you can have on this earth.
Definitely.
And that needs to be honored. It needs to be listened to. It needs to be heard. So if a mother is saying, I feel my milk supply is less, we need to investigate what is she meaning by that. That may not be true, that there is a true milk supply problem, but she is leading you somewhere.
Okay.
So if I dismiss it, I'm not going to get my answers, right? The issue could be that the baby is not feeling satisfied. The baby, in spite of having proper hydration, proper bowel movements, baby's gaining weight, still an unhappy baby, crying all the time, not satisfied, constantly at the mother's breast, never really resting and having a rhythm that is natural rhythm of sleep
Right.
cycle and feeding and sleeping and bonding. That cycle is exhausting the mother, for example. All these are signs that you need to, red alerts, that mother's heart already knows that she may not know the answers, but she can tell you there's something not okay.
Right. So, ma'am, exactly when should a mother seek for breastfeeding help? So, what are the
Support, you mean?
parameters? Yeah, but what are the parameters when they should go outside and seek for the help?
I think anytime she's feeling overwhelmed, she should look for help, because that
Okay.
could be support that she needs from a moral support that can come from mother to mother support groups, or other mothers who are going through similar things. She can receive that kind of support. So anything that overwhelms her and makes her feel that she's inadequate, she feels that something is going wrong and I'm not getting the right kind of answers around me, then she needs to look for support. I really feel that every mother should reach out for support. And of course, the other things I mentioned to you, if the baby is not gaining
Yes.
weight, not sleeping well, not transferring milk well, those are, and if a baby has been put on formula, for sure this baby needs to reach out for support.
So my next question coming up was that only, should breastfeed be mixed with bottle feed? The formula
Okay,
mix.
so I think we are looking at if you're asking a specific question to do with whether breast milk can be mixed with formula, sometimes during the feed times and we're doing, for example, an aided breastfeeding, like on, we take an lactation aid and we support the baby with an tube, which is a nasogastric tube. That's not put through the nasogastric the way the premature babies are being put through, but it is used as an external device to support the baby to get some supply externally through a
Right.
bottle, but at the breast. So if
Okay.
we are setting that up, we are really not beating the bush by not keeping the breast milk separate and formula separate. We keep it simple is what my approach has been always. Concentrate on what needs to be done rather than how it is done there. What are we
Right.
mixing there? That becomes a lot more less relevant in terms of clinical support, I would feel. So it's fine if you're mixing it up, it's perfectly fine. But of course, if you're having a large quantity mixing, because the formula cannot be kept for long periods of time, you might lose out if the milk is not used up at that point. So given that scenario, I think is a very individual approach. So if a mother has to have a specific question regarding how much is to be mixed, I think your lactation consultant can support you. But generally, if you ask me if small amounts can be mixed, absolutely, that's not an issue.
No. So again, this is a very, very, very common question. Why my breast sags if I'm breastfeeding? So is there any connection between the sagging and the breastfeeding?
Uh, some amount could be there because there is an act, there is a physical exercise that's happening where baby is breastfeeding. So there are mothers who will say, I'm breastfeeding from one side, and during this process, I realized that the one that baby is breastfeeding from is sagging, and the other one is not sagging, and it looks very, not in a balance.
Yes.
So yes, there will be some amount of, I would call it maturization of the body.
Okay.
It's a transformation of the body like the pregnancy does, Nisha. So a young woman who's going through pregnancy will change and transform through the pregnancy.
Definitely. It's a part and parcel
Similarly,
of it.
breastfeeding as an act will change the body's experience as well, for sure. There is some amount of it. But if you're concerned whether or not, oh, I'm going to have saggy breast, so therefore I will not breastfeed, I think that has nothing to do with breastfeeding. I think it's more to do with how do we see our bodies as an experience of life. And are we willing to embrace life and its transformation of the body through different ages that we go through? And are we embracing our life holistically? Are we gracefully moving through life? You know?
Right. So moving on to the next one, again a very common question. It is, how long should I breastfeed? Every mother
Um,
has this confusion.
yeah. So it's a relationship. Let's look at it that way. I don't think we put numbers to it because breastfeeding is a relationship, and we
Okay.
need to honor a relationship just like every other relationship.
Definitely.
So you cannot have two people come into a relationship with one is overbearing and demanding on the other.
Okay.
That relationship will not last a long time, right? So therefore, it has to have a balance. Everything has to have a balance. So if you look at it from that perspective, many mothers can go through natural weaning process, which takes approximately 2.5 years to 4 years. Easily, they can go through that. But there are some mothers and babies who can manage a relationship that can last for a specific amount of period. But from a nutritional point of view, like the WHO and other organizations, breastfeeding organizations of the world has agreed upon, and research has shown us that minimum 2 years of breastfeeding is required, and it's desirable and supported for the baby's nutrition point of view. And nutrition continues even after that. There's no way that the gold that is in the first 2 years can become any less later. But from a relationship point of view, we need to honor what a individual mother and baby can manage at that point.
So again, you have given a very different view to this question, because we have always discussed in the numbers like 6 months, a
Numbers.
year, or maybe 3 years, but definitely not from a relationship mode. We have one more question coming here. I breastfed my son 4.5 years and my daughter 5.5 years. Thank you, my Yashmin. I think she's one of your.
Yeah,
She's
Mansi. I mean, that's
yeah.
Mansi. That's a wonderful,
Wow,
wonderful
that's
mom.
really
And
commendable. Like,
she's a therapist herself, by the way. So people should reach out to her because she has a lot of things to offer from her own kitty bag. And she's a mother who has had experiences as well. So she's gone through natural birth. She's made sure that she's honored the relationship with her babies and I know found her own voice in her life. So there are,
wow.
I mean, I have been honored to meet in my journey mothers who I would salute with, like mothers who have really risen up to their situations and the power that they
Definitely.
stand. It's absolutely beautiful, and I feel honored and I feel enriched in my life to have come through such women.
Wow. That's really commendable, ma'am. So moving on to the last question of how to take care of yourself as a breastfeeding mother when
Ha.
it comes
So
to yes, ma'am.
yeah, so I think that's an integral part of every woman's life that we need to understand about. So when mothers come to me for breastfeeding problems, I already know that more than 50-60% of the problem is going to come from the mother. That mother is not rested, she has not taken care of herself, everyone else is more important for her at that time, especially her baby. And that situation is even naturally women tend to kind of put others needs first. And as a mother, for sure, she's in an annihilation mode, in the sense like I will destroy myself for my baby. She's in that mode. Most mothers are in that mode, I will
Yes,
destroy myself in this relationship and I give everything for my baby. So that's where people come from, and that's a very beautiful, in a way it is, it's a deeply nourishing nature of a woman. But what is important to realize is that uh, it's like, I'll give you an example of it. You're sitting in an aeroplane and there's an emergency happening, okay, and
okay,
something is going to occur. What's the first instruction that's given to you? Put on your oxygen mask before you support others.
yes,
So if I am not breathing and I am not alive, there's nothing I
will
can
not
do
do
to
that.
others. There's
Yes,
nothing I can do.
definitely,
So if I'm
definitely,
empty, I can only feel depleted. I cannot enrich others.
right,
And this is something that we really need to understand, not from a point of view of selfishness. I think that's where we run away because we don't want to feel that we are selfish, right? We are not.
right,
But what we need to know is that if I am rested, I am taken care of my own needs, only then I can take care of my loved one's needs. And
definitely,
that is the healthy relationship. And if you categorize it from a me time, and if you start to call it a me time, which is very popularly used nowadays, or saying that you need to self care, I think when you start to talk from those terms, we start to separate the importance of a healthy relationship, that we can have a balance. Only when we care for self, we can care for everyone else.
definitely. I'm completely
And
on your
who's going
side
to
in
benefit
this.
out of it? And the ones who are going to get benefited out of it is your loved ones and your baby.
Definitely. If you are 100% fit, if
Yeah.
you are safe, you are happy, you are emotionally
Yes.
stable,
Yes, absolutely.
you're gonna give
So,
everything to
so many
yourself.
mothers, I'm telling you, Nisha, lots of mothers need a lot of healing. And in fact, mothers need more healing than babies do.
Yes, yes.
So
I
I
can
believe
understand.
that if you heal the mother, you heal the baby.
So, as a mother of two kids, even I can relate to this whole conversation how important it is to take care of yourself, especially during those 40 days. Because just like that newborn, even you are a new mother. For them, for us also, it's a very new experience.
That's right. Yeah. And being gentle with self, taking the support that you need. That's why we have lost the culture of taking care of mothers postpartum. The 40 days of nesting time is absolutely important.
It's very
And we
important.
need to return back to the roots, safeguard its culture. And we have already lost it. So if people are living in areas where they are still alive, they need to document it. They need to make sure that we bring it back into our culture in some other form. Maybe if it can't be done in a traditional setup the way it was done before, like joint families lived, we still need to bring it at a community level. And
Definitely.
that's why since you asked me that, after the film of Untying Breastfeeding, I felt very strongly called to make a film to document the postpartum.
My next question was this: when I'm gonna see all this documentary, I was about to ask you.
And I don't know when that's going to come alive, but the
It will, it
universe
will.
has the seed has been put into the universe, and the resources will come. So I'll wait for that.
So once you have put that in universe, I'm sure in years or maybe 5 6 years we'll see that documentary.
Somewhere it will come. Yes, yeah, and that is
So now,
another story that needs to be told.
yes, yes. So now moving on to the next section, and as we are running out of time also, I'll quickly wind up this thing with quick solution and quick home remedies with few of the problems that moms always face after they start breastfeeding. Sore and cracked nipples.
Huh.
What are
Okay. Well, I often look at just the home remedies, coconut oil, shea butter that you have at home. All these are great ways. Olive oil can be supportive during pain. So everything is within your kitty in the house, and that can be utilized. Of course, there are other commercial products that are also available, which is not easily available for you. But it doesn't make it should not make you feel that you need to spend money or seek those things. Everything is within your kitchen. Your kitchen has an entire pharmacy inside, so you use that.
not enough breast milk, low milk supply?
Okay. So correcting, I think functional correction of the latch and breastfeeding is the key most important. But apart from that, if you're asking about herbs and all that, there are wonderful, wonderful herbs that can be used that supports better circulation in the body, better digestion and gut health. And your gut health takes care of better production of the, blood circulation in the body. And the blood supply is what supplies your manufacturing of the breast milk in your body. So therefore, absolutely, there are so many herbs like methi. There is, the fenugreek seeds. Then there is the blessed pistil, milk pistil is there, and there are, those drumstick leaves. There is a moringa. Those are there, and I'm telling you, you should look for. I think you are, interviewing her, Supriya Arun. She
Yes.
has a book on that, and it's a fantastic book. You should, I think that book every mother should have, because it goes back to the roots of Indian culture. And instead of looking at superfoods from outside India and still seeking for it and spending lots of money looking for it in health stores, go back to your roots. It's simply available in your backyard, or maybe just in your Ayurvedic shop right next to your area. So
She helped
that book
us.
has a book. That book has recipes. That book has herbs that it talks about. It's lovely.
So moving on to the next one is breast engorgement.
Breast engorgement. I think castor oil is my go-to.
Okay.
Castor oil supports drainage from the body, especially the engorged breast, and relieves the engorgement like nothing else does. So warm castor oil compress is fantastic.
That was a very, very easy solution, I guess. Latching issues.
Latching issues. Reclining positions, if their mother's trying on her own self, I think that supports the most natural way of how the baby approaches the mother. And it supports in a way, some sort of an ergonomic approach, where the baby and the mother can bond well, and an easier latch can happen for
Okay.
stability purposes. But otherwise, I think reaching out for good support and making sure that there are no functional restrictions will support returning back to breastfeeding in a smoother way in terms of latch.
Too much of milk supply.
Too much of supply. I think that's to do with a lot of you know um, some sort of a sign for inflammation in the body. Unless the mother is pumping also, if she is driving it herself, then I think we need to stop that and reduce it. But if she's
Okay.
not and it's already happening by itself, she needs to get her nervous system to regulate itself. When it starts to do the regulation, then you don't have an oversupply issue happening. It will start to settle down.
So
And
just basic.
cabbage leaves at home, just cold cabbage leaves can, you know also settle the body a bit, even during engorgement as well as the milk supply.
So next one is
But one has to be careful, Nisha. One has to be careful with these protocols, because they are very strong and they are very profoundly, what would I say? Um, uh, they are very healing in nature. They were strong in energy in healing, you know. So
Okay.
potent is very high. So we got to be careful when we use them. Sometimes it can go on the other side when you start to reduce your milk supply. So if you're trying to augment your supply, I think it's best to get the proper help.
Next one is thrush.
Thrush, okay. Coconut oil. Coconut oil is the greatest thing that you can. The only way to fight thrush is coconut oil. Antibacterial, antifungal. It has all the qualities that you need to take care of thrush. And along with that, of course, you need to follow personal hygiene, making sure you're washing your clothes and your every equipment that you're using for the baby in hot water. And so those things are essential as a protocol.
Blocked milk ducts.
Hmm. I think soaking your breast in vinegar, warm vinegar, apple cider vinegar, and then using olive oil to unplug, that can be helpful and supportive.
So mastitis.
Mastitis, like I mentioned to you again, I go back to castor oil, and I also support a lot of homeopathy. Using homeopathy, supported it takes care of many issues that you talked about, including thrush and engorgement and mastitis and abscess. Homeopathy can be very, very supportive.
So now coming to the end of the show, I would, ma'am, why don't you give us 10 secrets of successful breastfeeding?
10 secrets. Oh my God, that's a lot. Yeah.
Okay, give us few
Okay.
of it.
No, that I mean there are too many, but I think if we come down to it, and we have spoken about it through the call that we have
Yes.
done today, I think birth, supportive birth is number one. And that's something that one needs to educate oneself with, that how can I support my birth. And if he manages to do that, then also knowing well that you talk to your providers, that care providers who are supporting you during birth, to make sure that you are given the baby immediately after birth, maintaining the integrity of the golden hour. That's the first 1 hour of birth, and baby is given the chance to be on the mother's breast and to be able to do breast crawl and support, latching and feeding on its own integrity, and on its own basis, and on its own autonomical approach. So that is something that you can be supportive of. And apart from that, making sure that you have a proper network around you, support network ahead of time, making sure your family is supportive around you. Build the support system if you don't have the support system, that is taking care of your house running issues, or taking care of you, nurturing you in a way process. So you need to have enough people taking care of you as well, like you having food, proper food, and all of those. And then of course the other forums that we have outside, which are supportive forums, are already available. So anyways, finding your tribe is like crucial. Finding your tribe. But if you have issues, reach out for help. Do not delay. That's another thing that we can look for. And I would say, try and take breastfeeding journey as a way to a self-healing process, to allow you to arrive at your power of being a woman and a mother. And nurturing a baby through breastfeeding and mothering through breastfeeding is a journey that we must support every mother to go through. And if a
Definitely.
mother can manage to do that, I think she will come off uh, cherishing her life. Yeah, she will come out cherishing her life.
Wow, ma'am, that was a real informative session on very light notes where you have mentioned breastfeeding not as an issue but as a relationship with
Yeah.
your child. So, as we are moving on with the show, ma'am, I would like to, I'd like to share this thing. Nutrizoe have just, we have came up with a campaign where we are working and we are trying to support the cause normalize breastfeeding. Ma'am, please, can you tell our mothers that how normal it is to breastfeed wherever and whenever they want, and it's not at all awkward thing.
Yeah, I think that's a just as we realize this as a part of life, we take, if it becomes a part of your life and it's not a stop gap of your life, which some others might be assuming that, okay, now I'm going to make myself cushioned in at home and quarantine myself for 6 months, or quarantine myself for 1 year until I finish my breastfeeding, and then I'll emerge outside. I think the sooner the better that we consider breastfeeding as a part of the relationship and as a part of my life or the day-to-day life, then it becomes easier for them to welcome it anywhere and everywhere. And as in Indian culture, honestly, I must say, there are a lot more supportive people than they are not. They are less, we come across less people who don't support, but more people who support, because it's a part of our culture anyways, like in
Of
the
course, of
village
course.
side, countryside, it's very common. And there are people who are very accommodative even in cities, very very accommodative mostly. I have never had issues that way, I'd had painful issues, but I'd not had issues from a cultural point of view. I didn't have anyone coming crying on me and saying I can't support you because you're breastfeeding a baby. They
Of
wouldn't do that. So that's, I have not faced that. So I don't think that's a reality for a lot of mothers. But they will be often, there will be some of them who will raise their eyebrows and they'll say, oh, this is not right, especially an older child. If you're breastfeeding an older child, people might kind of not have the same sort of an supportive approach. But I think we do have a culture in India where a lot of mothers, whether or not they do it in public, they do breastfeed for long periods of time. I've heard mothers
Yes.
talk about 5 years, 6 years, you know.
We
So
have a mother on our show right now with
I
4.5 and
know, that's what I'm
5.5
saying.
years
So
experience.
5, 6 years,
Definitely.
yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, so that's why. So I think it's a from the cultural point of view, I think we need to honor the culture also in a way. And there are people who will not be very educated, but the number of people or the percentage is far lesser.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for taking out time for us, for being so informative, so light on the notes, and sharing so many good informations with our mother. I'm sure all the mothers who are listening now have joined now and will be listening to our talks later on. They all will get so many benefits out of this discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
Thank you so
inviting
much,
me.
ma'am. Thanks for your time.
So happy
See you all.
breastfeeding week to all.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. See
Yeah.
you all, mommies, tomorrow with our next expert, Dr. Vinay Joshi.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Bye, ma'am. Have a nice evening.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.